Jai Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa Parivajagacharya Astotra Sata Srimad. His Divine Bhayacharanaravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa Parivajagacharya Astotra Sata. His Divine Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Sekaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivas Adi Gaura Bhaktavinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakun Radhakun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Mathura Dham Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Purushottama Kshetra Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Maya Ki Jai. Jamuna Maya Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Tulasi Maharani Ki Jai. Shri Shri Harinam Sankirtan Yagya Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Nitai Gaura Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Today we read from A Transcendental Diary, Travels with His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, October 1976 to November 1976 by Hari Sari Prabhu. Today we are reading in Sri Vrindavan Dham. Sri Prabhupada is in Sri Vrindavan Dham. He wasn't criticizing the Westerners either. Atheism is on the increase, even here in India. What to speak of others, even in our country? They do not believe that there is God. Nowadays, not formally, they do not believe that there is God nowadays, not formally. We have become so rascal. There is no God. These are all what is called mythology. These are mythology ideas. There is God and there is sin. There are pious activities. Big sannyasis, they are asking that don't care for all this. There is God, there is sinful, there is pious. You can do whatever you like because you are yourself God. There is no papa punya. You are immune from papa punya because you are God. Despite this propaganda, people are nevertheless suffering. And thus Prabhupada said that the Guru's business is to stop his disciples from making plans to be happy. Happy in this material world, that is. Plan making for material advancement is simply dreaming. He told a funny story to illustrate his point. Energy should be utilized how to please Krishna. That should be done. Energy should be utilized for that purpose, not waste energy simply for a false hope that I shall become happy. I shall do this. I shall do that. I shall make money like this. The story of the potter. The potter is planning. He has got a few pots and he is planning. Now I have got these 4 pots and I will sell. I will make some profit. Then there will be 10 pots. Then I will sell 10 pots. I'll make some profit. I'll get 20 pots, and then 30 pots, 40 pots. In this way I shall become a millionaire, and at that time I shall marry, and I shall control my wife, in this way and that way. And if she is disobedient, then I shall kick her like this. So when he kicked the pots, and all the pots broke. Oops. Prabhupada's expressive account brought peals of laughter from his audience, and he shook with amusement as he looked out earnestly over his followers. So then, his dream is gone, you see? Similarly, we are simply dreaming. With few pots, we are simply dreaming that these pots will be increased into so many pots, so many pots, so many pots, then finished. Don't make imagination, make plan. The Guru, the spiritual master, and the government should be careful that these rascals may not make plan. This rascal may not make plan
to be happy, rather than a life wasted pursuing false dreams. He told us that the Vedic idea was quite different. The great sages, rishis, they wrote so many books, but they used to live in a cottage. Only the kings, the kshatriya, because they had to rule over, they used to construct big, big palaces. No one else. They lived very simple life. Not waste time for so-called economic development, skyscraper building, subways, and so on and so on. This was not Vedic civilization. This is Asuric civilization. Conceding that it is very hard to drag people away. Jai Shishi Vijay Gauranga Dayanitai Ki Jai. From their material pursuits. Srila Prabhupada nevertheless reiterated that human life is actually meant for tapasya, austerities, by which we can gain the recognition of the Supreme Lord. So Krishna will be very much pleased. Here it is said that Mal Loka Kamaha, how one can go to Krishna Loka or Vaikuntha Loka. Very easy. Krishna personally says, it is not our manufactured word. Krishna said, Manmana bhava mad bhakto madhyaji mang namaskuru. Bhagavad Gita, 18th chapter, verse 65. Do these 4 things. Always think of me. That is Krishna consciousness. Become my devotee. Worship me and offer obeisances to me. And asangsaya, you'll come. Mal loka. Very good. Very easy thing. Asangsaya. Without any doubt, you'll come to me. Why do they not accept this proposal of Krishna? It is not our manufacture. We are not washing brain. It is Krishna's word. That simply by doing 4 things, manmana bhava mad bhakto madhyaji mang namaskuru mang evaishi asangsayaha, without any doubt, that is required. Krishna will be pleased. Maharaj, would you like to say something?
Yeah, this verse that Prabhu was quoting appears 2 times. You know.
Yes, sir.
So much emphasis that he repeats it 2 times.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, that's actually, thank you very much, yes. Okay. Now I will read from the Srimad Bhagavatam. We will read from Srimad Bhagavatam, the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 5th canto, the creative impetus, chapter 5, Rishabdev's appearance, verse 15. Okay. It's a very long prose. No, it's verse 4, or chapter 4. Chapter 4, verse 15. The characteristics of Rishabdev. All right, here's small. Yad yak chirshanya charitang tat tad anuvartate lokaha. Excuse me. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Okay, sure. Yad yak chirshanyar charitang tad tad anivartate lokaha. And I'll read the word for word. Yat yat, whatever. Sir Shanya, by the leading personalities. Acharitam, performed. Tat tat, that. Anivartate, follow. Lokaha, the people in general. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Whatever action is performed by a great man, common men follow. Purport. A similar verse is also found in Bhagavad Gita, 3rd chapter, verse 21. It is essential for human society to have a section of men perfectly trained as qualified Brahmanas, according to the instructions of Vedic knowledge. Those below the Brahminical qualification, administrators, merchants, and workers, should take instruction from those ideal people who are considered to be intellectuals. In this way, everyone can be elevated to the highest transcendental position and be freed from material attachment. The material world is described by Lord Krishna himself as Dukkalayam, Asasvatam, a temporary place of misery. No one can stay here, even if he makes a compromise with misery. One has to give up this body and accept another, which may not even be a human body. As soon as one gets a material body, he becomes dehabrit, or dehi. In other words, he is subject to all the material conditions. The leaders of society must be so ideal that by following them, one can be relieved from the clutches of material existence. Okay, this is a very good purport here. Om Angyana Timir Andasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svang Rupa Kadamayan Dadati Sva Parantikam. Whatever action is performed by a great man, common men follow. Okay. I'm reading this part of the Bhagavad Gita right now, actually. And let's talk about it a little bit. So this is talking about preaching, actually. Whatever action, activity. And then in the purport, Prabhupada says, it is essential for human society to have a section of men perfectly trained as qualified Brahmins, according to the instructions of the Vedic knowledge. And those below the Brahminical qualification, administrators, merchants, and workers, should take instructions from those ideal people who are considered to be intellectuals. And by taking instructions, everyone can be elevated to the highest transcendental position and be freed from material attachment. So let's talk about that a little bit. Okay, so in this section of the Bhagavad Gita, there's another verse. It says, everybody should perform everybody should work according to their modes of nature, which they have cultivated, their psychophysical nature. We have to work according to our psychophysical nature, which means according to our position in the Varna and Ashrama system of society. And it says that one should not act one should not perform activities which are not according to their varna and ashrama. In other words, one shouldn't imitate. So a Vaishya should not act like a Brahmin. And the example in the Bhagavad Gita is that a Kshatriya should not act like a Brahmin and try to be non-violent. Because non-violence is like the dharma of Brahmins. But why is that? It's important to understand why. So, first of all, a person who is on that platform of a Brahmin, they can understand, so for example, the spiritual master, right? Of course, the spiritual master is above that platform, but at least, right? The spiritual master can understand the psychophysical nature of the disciple, and therefore can instruct them about how to act in Krishna consciousness for their own benefit. They can instruct them how to act. In other words, what sort of pursuits they should engage. And by the performance of these pursuits, these actions, when they are performed according to the principles for the varna and ashrama, then gradually we become cleansed. Gradually we become purified. And that's written in the Bhagavad Gita. And that's our philosophy also. So what does that imply? That means that, I'll give you my own example, my own self as an example, because I remember, this is actually a very instructive anecdote. When I first started distributing books, I would use methods which were not exactly honest and very polite also, not always very polite. And nobody corrected me. And I'm not upset about that. I'm glad. Because every day when I went home, I read Srimad Bhagavatam. And I read Bhagavad Gita. And I chanted. And in the association of devotees, I worshiped the deity in the Mangalarti prayers. And I honored prasadam. And this is our process. And then gradually, my methods changed. Nobody had to tell me anything. Nobody ever told me, and that's good. Because gradually my methods changed by reading Srimad Bhagavatam daily. I was less attached to the result. In the beginning I was very attached to how many books went out, how much Lakshmi I collected. Very attached. I do remember somewhere along the way, someone said to me that they knew a person who would go out and distribute just 10 books. But those people went back to the temple. And it was just like, all I can remember, I don't remember the person, I just remember hearing that. And then I just kept on doing my book distribution. I kept on going out every day. But gradually things changed. I became more honest. I was less attached to the result. So when I approached people, I didn't care. I just said, this is our philosophy. This is literally our philosophy. This book is actually about A, B, C. And you can look in the book and see which page, and see this talks about that. I would just talk about the book. I didn't do any, before that I would do different things. I would you get a little bit of, you practice austerities, something happens. You become a little more convincing. But I didn't do that anymore. And see, this is an example of what it means to slowly rise above the modes by performing engagements according to your nature. So that's why it's important, really, unless somebody is your student, you shouldn't really instruct them. Because you don't know what their psychophysical nature is. You don't know that actually. And then later on I started thinking, I should tell people. I've had this urge, it was mode of passion. Let me instruct these people. Let me tell them, you need to do it like that. And then I remembered something. I remembered how in the beginning I had a technique, and how that technique changed organically. On its own it changed. Nobody had to tell me anything, because our process this process is perfect. This process is perfect and it works. And you can apply it and you will get a result. You will get the result. You really will. It's independent. Everything in this material world is depending on something else. It's all relative truths. You go to the university because you want to get a good job afterwards, but that good job depends on the industry being there. You know, for example, you want to study music. That's great. I don't want to say that's a bad thing. I mean, I want to make an example here, not of you, but of this principle. Is that your ability then to go forward with that, that to teach would depend upon students being there. But Bhagavatam is independent. This Vaishnava philosophy brought to us by Srila Prabhupada, it stands on its own. It's actually completely independent. You can be alone and nobody listens to you, but if you follow this process, you'll get a result. So this process is independent. So if you simply follow the instructions of the spiritual master and you act according to your guna and your karma, of course you have to read and associate with this transcendental knowledge. Is not normal knowledge. It's not in the mode of goodness. When you read Bhagavatam, you're not associating with the mode of goodness. When you go to the park, you're associating with the mode of goodness. But when you read Bhagavatam, you're associating with the personality of Godhead and His representative through the transcendental purports. And that process will gradually elevate your consciousness beyond the mode of goodness, and then your activities will change. When you begin Krishna consciousness, if you're a simple, anybody can change, no matter what their background is. Even if you eat, they consider dog eaters to be really low. I think we saw a video, pig eaters were worse than dog eaters. And it said, Prabhupada said it, even the pig eater. And even the cow eater, worse than the pig eater, the worst. So it doesn't matter what your background is. This process is independent. It works on its own. There's a seed in your heart. That's that seed of devotion. And if you read and chant, it will water. It will grow. And actually, it literally goes up. And it goes all the way past Vaikuntha into the spiritual world. Literally. It's going all the way up there. Oh, thank you so much, Maharaj. Hare Krishna, for your association, being here. So then we talk a little bit about something else, because that was very important. And we can go on a little bit further. Okay, what is the next here? The material world is described by Lord Krishna himself as Dukhalayam Asasvatam, a temporary place of misery. So let's talk about that a little bit. So there's two things here, temporary and misery. So then the next sentence, no one can stay here, even if he makes a compromise with misery. Even if you make a compromise with misery, you say, well, it's because you have to give up your body. You will have to give up your body. Excuse me. So we should understand that whatever this is very important. All right, right. So the living entity is eternal. All right? And then the material engagements are temporary. So then this begs a question. When the living entity engages in activities in the material world, what is the benefit? If the person is practicing Krishna consciousness, though, what's the benefit? So we have to understand that, maybe I didn't phrase that question properly, but yes, that's right. If a conditioned soul is performing activities in the temporary place that are temporary activities, the only result will be karma. But if the living entity is performing activities in devotional service, but those activities are looking like they're temporary activities. For example, we sometimes have to go and work. We have a job, right? Or we have an education we pursue. Or we take a shower every morning. Across Europe, everybody's taking a shower every morning. But these activities are meant for our own spiritual advancement. In the conditioned state, these activities we perform, they have a purpose. And that purpose is for purification. And that, again, is why we should act according to the modes of nature. According to our varna and ashram. Because if we have different activities for different varna and ashrama, but all activities are meant to bring the individual to purified consciousness. All the activities are meant to bring the individual to purified consciousness. So try to understand that, because what does that mean is that it's like a training ground. Even if you make a mistake, the best way to rectify a mistake is to keep going. And that's written in the Nectar of Instruction. In the story of Parikshit Maharaj, or inquiring from Shukadeva Goswami about Prayaschita. So the best way to rectify a mistake is to keep on going, because there will be mistakes. That's not the problem. And at every moment there's an opportunity to engage in Krishna consciousness. Every moment, that means that in every moment there's an opportunity to reconfirm our activities are meant for the pleasure of Guru and Krishna. At every moment that opportunity is there for you. At every moment the opportunity is there. And when we engage like that, our activities aren't temporary anymore. Our activities is therefore to please Krishna, and therefore it becomes eternal. But externally it looks temporary. This Krishna consciousness will take you to the next birth. It's not a one lifetime thing. It's not a 5-year thing or 2-month activity. It is an eternal aspiration. Krishna consciousness is an eternal aspiration. The ways, the means, and the end, they're the same. Eternally. Our activities bring us to the next birth. To the next births. So that's also, therefore, it is very important to be patient. You may not make full advancement in the first lifetime. It's okay. It's not a race. We don't read Bhagavatam to get to the 10th canto and the 11th canto. It doesn't mean that somebody who's reading 11th canto Bhagavatam is more advanced than a person who's reading the first canto. That's not our philosophy. This Krishna consciousness will take you to the next birth. It's an eternal aspiration. We are aspiring eternally. So be patient. You will see slowly, gradually, the seeds of sinful desire are slowly being destroyed. Slowly being destroyed. And our behavior is rectifying itself. Slowly. All of our bad qualities will slowly start to diminish until all that's left are the big ugly qualities. And those also will be destroyed. It's a very gradual process. So you have to be patient. And you have to therefore also maintain enthusiasm. Don't give up on this. Wherever you go, if you're living in the temple, if you're not living in the temple, if you're visiting the temple, if you're not visiting the temple, never give up on this. I can remember even in my most difficult moments, furthest away from Krishna consciousness, in the morning I would offer obeisances and I would offer obeisances in the evening. That was my service. Twice a day. It's the minimum. I would offer my prasadam, my bhoga, my food. Even if only in my mind, only if I remembered my guru, I would consider that offering. So even though it will take you to the next birth. Never let go of it. Be patient. It works. It is independent. And the independence is expressed in the very first verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Svarat, I think the word is. Unabhängig. Unabhängig. Dieses Vorstellung? Process? Vorgang. Dieser Vorgang ist unabhängig. Ganz total. Wir sind alle Deutsche hier. Also mich. Also, dieses Vorgang ist ganz unabhängig. Ganz. Es hängt nicht darauf irgendeine andere Dinge. Es ist ganz komplett. Einfach. Und so ich gehe ein bisschen weiter. As soon, wie sobald als man einen materiellen Körper bekommt, er ist bedingt von diesen materiellen Bedingungen. So, wie so bald als man einen materiellen Körper bekommt, right. Das heißt, we are conditioned, wir sind bedingt. Oh, this is very important. Es ist ganz wichtig zu verstehen. Dass ich bedingt bin, heißt das, es könnte sein, andere Menschen auch ein bisschen bedingt seien. Ja? Sind. Was heißt das? Das heißt, dass es ist ein ganz wichtiger Punkt. Und wenn man denkt, das ist ein Anfang, das ist ein anfangender Punkt. Jeder anfangende Punkt sind wichtig bis zum Ende, bis zur Vollkommenheit. Jeder kleine Punkt ist wichtig, sogar in die Schritte vor Vollkommenheit. Even in the steps before perfection, these small points are important. They never stop being important. Und dieser Punkt heißt, dass Entschuldigung. Ich sollte ein bisschen vergeblich sein von den anderen Menschen, wegen die bedingt sind. Wenn ich denke, dieser Mensch tut mir leid, dieser Mensch hat mir bestrafen, ja, right? Ja, gucke mal ein bisschen, denken Sie darüber. Wer ist wirklich die Karna Karanam? Wer ist das? Ishvara Parama Krishna. Wenn jemand straft mir, das heißt, Krishna hat das durch ihn getan. Krishna hat ihn benutzt. als ein Werkzeug, um mein Vorbild oder mein Fortschritt zu unterstützen. Und das ist das emphasize, this is a word, underlining, is this a German word for that? Das heißt, dass wir müssen Demut sein. Überall, Zeit und Menschen. Demut sein. Was kann ich davon lernen, wirklich? Krishna hat mir ein Geschenk gegeben durch diese Strafe. Es ist eine Frage meiner Bewusstsein. Wir müssen selbst im Herz Schuld finden. Es ist immer eine Frage von unserer eigenen Bewusstsein, nicht den von anderen. Krishna hat das als ein Geschenk gegeben. Diese Strafe, diese offensive behavior is a gift to us. So wir müssen immer ganz Demut sein. Wenn wir wollen wirklich Fortschritt zu machen. Langsam, allmählich, right? Allmählich, ist das Wort? Cool. Ich habe dieses Wort vor kurzem gelernt. Allmählich. Jai Shishi Vijay Gangadhar Nitai Ki Jai. Ja. Allmählich. Jeder Mensch, der ein Gottgeweihter ist ein besonderes Mensch. Jeder. Wir sollen mit allen unsere Verehrung geben, erweisen. They are all worshipable. Okay. In the last sentence, the leaders of society, was heißt Leader? Die Führer der Gesellschaft, die Führer der Gesellschaft müssen so ideal sein, dass wenn wir das durch die Folgen dieser Führer konnte die Gesellschaft, die Leute frei von diesen Bedingungen, dieser materiellen Schöpfung bekommen kann. Ja? Has that been understood? Cool. Mehr oder weniger. Ja? Und das ist ein ganz wichtiger Punkt auch. Wenn man ein Führer ist, muss man wirklich gut behalten. Wirklich. Behalten. They have to act properly. When a person is a leader, they have to really act properly. Because otherwise it's confusing. Wenn die Führer der Gesellschaft behandeln sich nicht gut, denn die anderen Leute sind einfach ganz verwirrt. Ganz verwirrt. Die wissen nicht, es sagt was, aber die machen wieso. Das ist Verwirrung. Das ist eine Verwirrung, right? Betrüglich. That's another word I learned recently. What does that one mean? Betrug. Cheating. Ja, oh, wow. Das ist ein bisschen betrüglich. Ja, aber es ist ein bisschen confusing. Verwirrend. Ja. I mean, wir möchten nicht über Betrügen sprechen, wegen das ist ein bisschen stark. Es ist ein bisschen heavy, es ist ein bisschen schwer. Es ist ein bisschen schwer. Ja, wir möchten ein bisschen vergeblich sein, demütig, deswegen sagen wir nur verwirrt. Ja. Vergebend. Vergebend sein. Alles ist ganz anders jetzt. Total verschiedene Meinungen haben Sie da. Dankeschön.
Vergeblich and vergebend are different words, different meanings.
So like,
So I don't know what
forgiving.
Forgiving.
Forgiving is which one? Vergebend.
Yes.
Jeder vergeben heißt vergebend. Es tut mir leid. So that's important. The leader of society should be very acting by example.
Compassionate means mitfühlend. Compassionate means mitfühlend.
Mitfühlend. Yeah. Yeah, that's really what I want to say today. This last line is actually very important. I can't really say too much about it because it says itself. You know, the leaders of society, of every society, have to really act by example. Otherwise, it's confusing. People become confused. In a spiritual institution, a spiritual society, in a material society, everywhere, it's confusing. And if they teach, wenn die Führer lehren durch Beispiel, durch schlechtes Beispiel, ist mislead. Missführen? Fehlgeleitet die Leute. Und das ist nicht gut für die Führer und die Leute. Es kommt noch einer geboren. Es könnte ein bisschen schlecht sein. Alles kann passieren. Ja, okay. Gibt es eine Frage? Yes, sir.
You said the Krishna consciousness take us to the next birth. Especially nowadays, es ist ein bisschen, die Erde ist nicht immer ein schöner Ort. Es ist, also wenn wir, sage ich mal, die nächste Geburt nehmen, heißt das, dass wir die nächste Geburt automatisch hier auf der Erde nehmen oder dass wir auch woanders wiedergeboren werden könnten?
Ja.
Weil auch gerade jetzt, das in 10.000 Jahren ist dann Kali-Yuga-Ausbruch und so, das ist halt.
Ja, wo wird wir nächste Geburt geboren werden? Das ist eine Frage von Gott. Gott weiß das, aber ja. Das heißt, wir konnten, wenn wir glücklich sein, wir konnten auf diesem Erde noch eine Birth bekommen.
Nochmal Geburt nehmen.
Nochmal Geburt nehmen. Ja, es könnte sein, wieso. Oder wenn wir wenn wir haben materialistische Glück, wir konnten auf einen anderen Planeten, einen höheren Planeten, noch eine Geburt nehmen. Aber das ist nicht das Ziel. Das Ziel, dass wir hier, wenn wir müssen hier wieder eine Geburt nehmen. Sodass wir können noch ein bisschen mehr Fortschritt machen. A little more progress making. Take your time. It's okay. It's okay. Alles gut. Aber machen Sie ein bisschen Fortschritt. Schritt bei Schritt. Es kommt. Der Ergebnis kommt. It really works. Es ist unabhängig. Zum Beispiel, seit 3 Jahren versuche ich meine Doktorarbeit zu anfangen. Versuche ich I'm trying to begin. Fange ich noch nicht mit meiner Doktorarbeit an. Und versuche ich da, I'm trying. Ich versuche, meine Doktorarbeit zu machen, zu beginnen. Kein Ergebnis. Es hängt von nicht mir, es ist abhängig. Es ist abhängig. Mein Studium ist abhängig. Niemand hat interessiert sich auf meine Themen. Meinem Themen. Niemand hat interessiert sich an meinen Themen. Das heißt, dass mir weitergehen, irgendwie meine Doktorarbeit machen, ist abhängig. My studies are dependent upon someone being interested. No one's interested. But still, by reading Srimad Bhagavatam, unabhängig. I'm making spiritual advancement. Thank you very much. 3 years are not wasted. 3 Jahre nicht verliert, verschwinden, verloren, nicht verloren. Ich habe davon profitiert. Wegen ich jeden Tag Srimad Bhagavatam gelesen habe und chanten. Deswegen habe ich profitiert. Ist ein bisschen schwierig, aber ich habe Fortschritt gemacht. Im Anfang war es ein bisschen, schwierig. Ja, it's okay. Ich bin vergebend an den Herrn. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, my question is, there's, as the professors, they are your leaders in the material world, and they cannot help you and tell you if you change the title or if you change this, maybe it works, or is this...
My situation is so desperate, people don't even talk to me. Die antworten meine E-Mail nicht. Das ist, nur gestern habe ich, es ist schwierig, irgendwie, ist ein bisschen, was heißt das, Herausforderung, aber ich bin bereits davor, komm, bitte, mach das. Ich mache Fortschritt auf einen anderen Weg. In eine andere Richtung, spirituelle Richtung.
So, and the other question was, this verse means everybody should act like a leader?
Yes.
Everybody should act like
Yes.
a leader, not even we should be humble, but still on the same way we should act like that others can see, oh, she's acting in this way, so we are always leaders.
Ja, wir sind immer Führer. Und wir sollen dabei behalten, wie Führer. Und wegen der gibt es immer jemand, das ein bisschen mehr, a little bit more of a beginner than us. Ein bisschen mehr früh als uns. Ein bisschen weniger fortgeschritten als uns. Die gucken an, wie wir behalten. So we should really always, Entschuldigung, this is offensive, but anyway. We have to always act properly. Try to do the best we can.
But if you're working in the material world, you are always employed. You are actually always employed, or you can be your own boss. But if you are employed, there are always higher positions persons. So you cannot tell them something that they have to change. So you have to be again in a different.
But what do we talk about here in this verse? Whatever action, whatever you do, whatever Tat, irgendeine Tat, die andere Leute gucken an. It's an action. We should teach by example. Durch Beispiel können wir, lernen Lernen. Nein, nicht lernen. Lehren. Beibringen. Durch Beispiel können wir beibringen. This is action. Not that we say anything, but we do something. And if a person says, what a nice gentleman, and that person is a devotee, they make advancement. Just like if you think, oh, what a bad gentleman, you don't make advancement. You go backwards. Ja? Wenn man sagt, oh, was für eine gute Herr oder gute Frau, wenn diese Herr oder Frau ein Gottgeweihter ist, der das gedacht hatte, macht ein bisschen Fortschritt. So, wir sollen immer gut behalten. Good verhalten. Okay, thank you very much. Something else? It's okay? We're okay? Grantra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Hare Krishna. Ich muss mein Deutsch beibringen. Allmählich.